everybody. Luna the Zen Witch here with a look at a chart that's pretty pertinent right now. What you are seeing is the natal chart of Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. And how much you want to bet that middle name didn't get referred to when he was a lad? I think it's a very cool name, but you can imagine being a boy with the middle name of Robinette. I'm sure he probably lied about that a few times. At any rate, I haven't done any research on this. I'm doing this completely off the cuff, but I will give you my impressions just as if I was reading your chart for you. So what we look at first is down in the corner here where we have a breakdown of how many planets are in which elements and how many planets are in which modes, remembering that the elements are personality traits, the modes are modes of behavior. So we do have a chart signature of Scorpio, and you can see that water is to the forefront, so he processes life mostly emotionally. That's, emotionally is where he meets life from the emotional body. Could I have said that any more awkwardly? I'm sure I could if I tried. And down at the bottom, we have a strong predominance of both water. You see how strongly predominant it is, and of fixed signs. Fixed water is Scorpio. If we look to the chart, we see why. He's got 4 planets in Scorpio. Where he comes up a little short is in Cardinal, and actually it's pretty short. Cardinal is your ability to initiate, to start things, to be the point person, to spearhead, be the inspiration at the front. So he's not really good at kicking things off and getting things started and getting everybody else fired up. But once there is something there to do, the fixity says he will see it through, absolutely. And he's also able to change, but that strong predominance of fixed energy means he's stubborn, he can stick to something, he can see it through. Okay. Now, going straight to the chart, I'm just going to look at the standouts that I see. Let's talk a little bit about his rising sign versus his sun. So sun in Scorpio, very intense, very powerful, charismatic. They pack a wallop. Scorpios, you feel their presence when they're there. They leave an impression, and it's a deep one, usually. But they're very serious. Scorpios can take themselves far too seriously. And then let's look at his rising sign, which is Sagittarius, which is almost the opposite of Scorpio. There's a way to look at the signs where if you just look at how each sign is the opposite of the one before it, it can get very, very interesting. So Sagittarius is the opposite of Scorpio because it doesn't take anything seriously. Sages are the ones that are joking, joking and laughing and partying and just kind of pass everything off as a joke. It gives one an outward personality that is generous, that is open-minded, that is broad, welcoming, all of those kind of Jupiter characteristics, because Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius. Now let's also oppose that to the fact that his sun is in his 12th house. So those scorpionic traits he keeps well hidden. He keeps them under the surface, close to the vest. And not only does he have the sun in Scorpio, but he's got the sun exactly conjuncting Venus. We're within 1 degree. So that also gives him a sweetness about himself, about his creative drive for significance is involved with people liking him, people having affection for him. And this Sun-Venus conjunction in Scorpio from the 12th house conjuncting the ascendant, that's the touchy-feely Joe. The Scorpio thing is he has to kind of take control of his environment and his surroundings, and subconsciously, because these things are in his 12th house, subconsciously it plays out where I'm going to smell your hair and massage your shoulders and all this kind of stuff. It really is sort of a manipulative move, a dominating move. But since it's conjuncting this Sag rising, it comes across as, oh, that's just friendly Uncle Father, friendly Uncle Joe. Okay. He also has Mercury in the 12th house. This does not conjunct the ascendant. Mercury in Scorpio is a powerful speaker and a deep mind. He can analyze things and research and pick things apart and dig very deeply. And then he is naturally disposed to communicate those things, and he can do that in a very charismatic way. But again, with all of those in his 12th house, you don't see a whole bunch of who Joe is. He keeps it very closely guarded. He keeps it very private. The Mercury in Scorpio in the 12th house, we can talk about his problem with a stutter growing up, and so you can see how he would have hidden his communication and kept it private and been reluctant to sort of open his mouth and speak. Okay, let's take a look here. But the main thing I take away from these planets, and then we've also got Mars in Scorpio. That's in his 11th house. That means he can, with the groups of like-minded people, he can be very active and aggressive towards transforming things, towards creating like deep and lasting change. That's the Plutonian part. The Scorpionic part is transformation. And with Mars in Scorpio, you can be aggressive about going after transformation. I'm going to make things the way I want them to be. With those 4 planets in Scorpio, the Sun and actually Mercury, Sun, Venus do create a stellium because Mercury and Venus are within 7 degrees of each other. So he's just packs a wallop as far as that Scorpio stellium goes. What I take away from it is do not fuck with Joe. When the chips are down, if he's got to reach out and touch somebody, if he's got to reach out and call upon power, he's got it in spades. One of the key words for Plutonian influence, which all those planets in Scorpio certainly gives him Plutonian influence, one of the key phrases is the velvet gloved fist. All the more velvet gloved because 3 of those planets are in his 12th house, where you're never going to see him. You'll see the outcome of it, but you're not really going to see those planets. Let's look at his moon. The moon is at 0 degrees 59 minutes of Taurus. That makes him emotionally very stable. Boy, is this ever a good thing. Because he filters everything through his emotions first, a Taurus moon, that position of the moon is called its exaltation, because the moon really reaches its full potential in the sign of Taurus. And what it means is it's a fixed sign, so he's not emotionally reactive. He's slow to react. And that he thinks in practical terms. His emotions serve him in a practical way. So he is not the kind to fly off the handle and throw a tantrum, or to just have, an emotional reaction and act on it. He's going to be very calculated, slow, and practical in what he does with his emotional reactions. And that moon is ruled by the Venus in Scorpio. So again, you're just not going to see big reactive displays of emotion from him. When you do see his emotion, it's deep, it's genuine, and it's based on what he's been through in life. But you're not going to see temper tantrums, like I said. Now, looking at other things that stand out, and I'm looking at planets conjuncting angles here. We have Uranus exactly conjuncting his 7th house cusp. It sits in his 6th house. Uranus is the planet of the rebel. So Joe certainly is a rebel with Uranus in Gemini ruling his Mercury. It says that he's an innovative thinker. He can think beyond the norm and the tradition and come up with new ideas and innovation. Very inventive thinker, even a brilliant thinker. When you've got Uranus involved with Mercury, it brings in that idea of brilliance and even genius. Okay, I'm looking at this Gemini here ruling his 7th house. Gemini on any cusp indicates duality of some sort. So on the 7th house cusp, it would indicate 2 or more marriages. He's had 2 marriages. He's got Saturn sitting in the 7th house, so he's there long term. When Joe commits, he's there for the long term. Saturn means things can hang in there over the long haul. It also indicates possibly marrying somebody older. I don't know if that was true about either one of his wives, but you can look it up. Let's see what else. We've got Neptune in his 10th house. So 10th house is your status, how you would make your mark in the world. Certainly would apply to somebody with a political career, somebody who's got high visibility in the public eye. Now, Mercury also rules his midheaven. And with the midheaven ruler in the 12th house, you operate from behind the scenes. Probably what made him, one of the things that made him a good vice president. But he's certainly a communicator. He would come across, though, with that midheaven in Virgo rather than Gemini, come across more as somebody that looks at process, that analyzes, and really thinks things through in terms of what makes the most sense, what is most efficient, what is the most elegant process with this, and also service-oriented. So that would be a hallmark of a politician. Of a public servant, because Virgo rules service, and ruling his midheaven, it would certainly make it natural for him to be a public servant. But with Mercury in the 12th house in Scorpio, he is certainly capable of keeping the majority of himself very private. He certainly is vulnerable. He shows us his vulnerabilities, and that's indicated by Neptune in the 10th house, saying he's not afraid to show his kind of soft underbelly, but there's still going to be a lot that he keeps very protected and behind the scenes. He's certainly more comfortable making his mark from behind the scenes. And you know, that's a good trait for a president, because it says that he is willing for other people to go out and be more visible. So he would be able to support somebody else going out, and so he can kind of stay back a little bit. Neptune in the 10th house can bring some weirdness to career stuff. It can talk about things that are kind of hard to get a grip on, things that can sort of disappear. So he might have been prone to some of his goals just sort of taking a left turn here and there. It also says that he's extremely sensitive to how people see him. Let me see what else I can say about that. You know, being that I know he's a politician, if I didn't know anything about him, with Neptune in the 10th house, you could talk about a career that deals with the arts in some way, or that deals with, here we go, deals with fighting for the underdog. Neptune rules the underdog, and Neptune in the 10th house says career can be involved with people that are underprivileged, can be involved with people in institutions, people incarcerated in some way, people whose liberties are limited in some way. Okay. I think I'm going to stop there. With all of these planets above the horizon, he's got 2 below the horizon, but he's got the other 8 and Chiron and the North Node sitting on the day side of the chart. This is the day side, this is the night side. And that just says that he is more extroverted than introverted. So it's an interesting balance, because while there is this strong drive for privacy, he's not an introvert. He's extroverted, but he's also private. Those two things can exist together. Absolutely. Let's see. Moon in the 5th house says he derives security from his children. From children, grandchildren, from playing with them, from hanging out with them. And you've heard them talk about their grandfather, their father and grandfather, and how wonderful he is as a parent. And it certainly shows up with the placement of his moon. Moon shows where you derive your security from, what makes you feel happy and secure. Moon in Taurus says he's happy and secure when there's money in the bank and food in the cupboard, and, you know, when he's got everything he needs and he can put his hand to it. Material goods is where his security comes from. But he certainly likes to play. He likes to have fun. It makes him feel secure when he can hang out with his kids and roll around on the floor with the grandkids and have a really great fun time. So I think, you know, character-wise, we know he's a good guy. We know he's been through trauma. I think that trauma is the source of this intense need for privacy. And let's look at Pluto, that rules that wad of planets here. It sits in Leo. It sits in his 8th house, and 8th house is other people's support. Do other people support you or not? And it does look like he would have had support growing up for the things that he was kind of keeping hidden. He can certainly manipulate for what he needs and wants. His moon, his nice stable moon, rules that 8th house, so he can be jolly and playful and, you know, haha, and slap you on the back and give you a neck rub and all that stuff, and he gets what he wants from doing that. Jupiter's sitting in that 8th house. Yes, it's retrograde, but it says that other people have been generous to him. Let me look at the aspects there. Jupiter squares the moon, so that can go a little bit overboard sometimes. Let's see, a Jupiter moon square. That in one way can blow emotions out of proportion. Certainly other people's generosity is negatively involved in his emotional stability. So if people aren't supporting him, that can take a hit on him as far as how secure he feels. But with Pluto sitting there, that velvet glove fist can come into play with, here's what I need you to do for me, as he's shaking your hand and looking deeply into your eyes, you know. So I think this Sag rising is going to stand him in good stead. Uncle Joe comes across as a happy-go-lucky guy, that stable moon, but he's got the ability to pull out the stops and pull power moves if he needs to. So I think this is a very good chart for our next President of the United States. So mote it be. I hope you got something out of that. If you did, like and subscribe and shoot me a donation if you feel like it. This is Luna the Zen Witch. I'll see you tomorrow for another unboxing. Blessed be.